Hey, I'm Fireball Tim, and welcome to the first annual World Class Automotive Film and Arts Festival.
Depending on the type of film, is there a common thing when you do multiple films, a common goal that those films have for you, despite the subject matter?
You're talking about separate films or
separate
segments
films
within this?
Well, separate films.
Well, I mean, I just want to try and tell a compelling story and expose to the general public something that most people don't know about.
Right.
So like one of my previous films was on magician's assistants, and people don't really think about them. They think about the guy going, the big magician. But she usually does all the work. So
right.
I found that interesting, and I wanted to tell people about it. And I found this interesting that there's all these racetracks in LA that are now parking lots or they're gone, but little bits and pieces of them, like the road race you can drive on, or parts of Legion Ascot, you can still take turn 4 of that one, and
you wouldn't even know that you're on it.
No, you absolutely would not.
Yeah, it's interesting because in doing films like this, you get a chance to almost stop time.
Absolutely.
And to capture something that people wouldn't even know. How buildings get torn down and new things get built up. You wouldn't even know that there was history there.
Right.
Is that your favorite type of thing, to be able to convey history?
Yeah, I do. I love it, and I love it because people always. I'm a native New Yorker, but I've lived in LA for a really long time, and everyone always sort of said there's no history in Los Angeles, and I've loved discovering all the history that we do have.
Right.
Not just automotive, but.
What inspired you to want to do this film?
I was working on a TV show called California's Gold with Teal Hauser, and the author, Harold Osmond, who wrote the book where they raced, we did a segment on the Corona Circle, which was a racetrack from 1913 to 1916, sorry. And Harold and I just kept talking. Every couple of years we'd talk, and he'd say that another person passed away, another car got wrecked and disappeared, and so finally we were like, okay, we need to cover everything, and so we just grabbed the camera and started shooting.
Yeah, and it's in many ways it's like a puzzle that you got to put together for this type of film.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, there's a few hundred tracks, so there's no way we could really cover them all like I wanted to.
But that's where sequels come in.
I guess so. Yes. We'll see. It's taken a long time to get to this stage, but yeah, it is like a puzzle. Not only actually like physically in the map of Los Angeles, but right. In time. Did we stop at the 60s or stop at the 70s?
And the goal is to be able to complete the film this year? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the goal.
Is there a film that, or a concept that you would really like to do, something that you're really passionate about after this?
For what's next?
Yeah. I know these guys probably have some ideas.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do, the history of the Concours d'Elegance. Sure. I also have a passion for animals. Los Angeles is, there's mountain lions and bobcat and coyote and deer, like on my street. Right. And yet I'm 20 minutes from Hollywood Boulevard, so I find that fascinating too. Yeah. What
is it about, because, people in general, we all search for that mode of expression, even to the point where people want to push so far even to the legalities of whether something is right or wrong. People have this overwhelming desire to express themselves. What is it about film for you that is most expressive?
I don't know, I've just always been drawn to telling stories with pictures. I like to write, but I'm not very good at it, so I'm better at telling pictures with stories, and it started with, Super 8 camera and red food coloring and doing zombie movies with my friends and blowing up firecrackers, and right. So it just started like that. Yes, yeah. Dawn of the Dead ripoffs.
Right. Is documentaries where you want to stay, or would you like to get into features?
Yeah, I worked on the feature side of things for a number of years, and I grew to dislike the egos involved, and documentary people tend to be easier going as far as that goes. But now, of course, everything's in reality. Like in pitching this series or this show to some of the networks, they ask me if someone gets voted off each week, or if a car gets destroyed or a racetrack gets built each week. And I'm like, no, it's one show, it's a history, no one's mean to anybody.
It's interesting that's what they're looking for nowadays.
Yes.
So let's see if any of these guys have a question. Okay.
Hi, I'm Steve, and I live in Southern California. And a couple of these are almost in my backyard. I have kind of two questions. Is this still a work in process, or will we see this as a DVD at some point? And then, then the other part was, how many venues, if when this becomes a completed work, how many venues do you think you'd be able to feature?
It will in fact be a DVD and downloadable, Netflixable shortly, probably September, October. I was supposed to be done in August, so it's already late.
It's a big puzzle.
It is a big puzzle. And as far as how many tracks, we sort of, I mean, there literally are a few hundred tracks that used to be in just LA County. I mean, I sort of cheated by going to Orange County for the first drag strip because I had to include it, and I went to the dry lake beds a little bit. But tracks that are featured, highly featured, there's probably like 6 or 7 that are highly featured, from like the board tracks and Gilmore Stadium, which is probably in your backyard, Lions Drag Strip, Pomona. So there's probably 6 or 7 that are really heavily featured, and then others that are mentioned kind of quickly in a couple of archival photos and hopefully footage when I can find it and afford the license rights for the footage.
There are a lot of independent film festivals around the United States, and this looked like to be a perfect film to show it. Have shown some of those. Yeah, have any ideas about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking into some of the more automotive film festivals, of which there are not many. I mean, this does seem to be sort of the first big one. There's smaller ones, but I've done a lot of documentaries in the past, and entering this is a very kind of niche product for, you know, auto fans and Southern California auto fans. So I don't know how well it'll play in all those festivals, and I really need to sort of move on to my next project, because it's been like 3.5 years of working on this nights and weekends, and so I'm just going to try and get it out there.
You mentioned there's over 100 racetracks in Southern California. How did you pick those 8 or 9 that you decided to feature? And what was the criteria for picking the ones that you decided to emphasize?
Usually the more famous ones, historically significant ones where there was, you know, archival footage of, or cars that had raced there. Like we brought one of the Ed Winfield's car back to Legion Ascot, and, you know, so we could reunite the car 85 years later on the track that it used to run, and, you know, actually take a lap. And we did that in Santa Monica road races. So that's sort of the bigger, more important racetracks and ones that had cars associated with it. And there was like over 200 tracks. So, I mean, it was a huge number.
Comment, first of all, and 3.5 years is a long time to work on a project when you have other interests, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of automotive enthusiasts. This could spur other filmmakers, other documentary historians in other parts of the country to take up the cause, and that would be great for the automotive community. And a quick question. Did you have trouble finding research data on 100-year-old things like this?
A little bit. I mean, Harold, who wrote the book, had done a lot of the heavy lifting as far as that goes. And I had spent 15 years at PBS digging up, you know, archival everything. So, you know, I like doing that. You know, I like going to a library and going through endless stacks of photos. So, you know, that was the fun part. That wasn't a trouble.
This is a really important comment, because the whole point of these films is about inspiration, isn't it? It's about being able to express in a way that gets people juiced and kind of excited about this stuff. So we really appreciate that comment. Any more?
And so in the spirit of, you know, where the future lies in motorsports, you're studying our past, which is fantastic, but certainly you must have some ideas on what you see for future tracks in Southern California.
Well, it's tough. One of the people we interviewed is named Tom Malloy, and his father built Carroll Speedway, which was in Gardena, and he was trying to build a new modern racetrack, and 10 years of environmental surveys and studies, and he basically just gave up. It was too hard. The fight, the noise problem. And this was way out, like past Lancaster in the middle of the desert, so there was really no one to be bothered by a track there, and it was just too difficult. So, we've seen the trouble that existed in Irwindale, and it's tough. I don't think there's going to be a lot. It's too big of a city, land values are too high. It's going to be elsewhere.
Yeah, it's tough. Did you have fun doing this?
I did.
For 3.5 years?
I did. Well, there's a lot of, there'll be a few months where I take off if I have a lot of, pain work on the other side of things.
So what do you have to say as far as loving what you do? How integral is being a filmmaker and loving it that much to be able to see it to its completion?
It's I'm very fortunate that I get to do what I love to do. I'd say that's absolutely for sure. There's no way. If I didn't love it, there's no way this would I wouldn't have been doing this for 3.5 years.
Right. Let's give a round of applause to Harry Pallenberg.